Hello, everyone. This is Catalina Salajan speaking. I think we should wait a couple of minutes. I see that people are still joining. So, for the first timers here, Team of One is a community for product managers built by accesa in order to support through our content, webinars, and networking events the development of the digital product managers. So I think that we can start right now. Okay, so thank you for joining us in this webinar. In today's session, I will explain how we can overcome mistakes when creating new products with the help of the lean startup, tackle those issues, and present how to solve them with practical examples. Now, I will go behind the buzzwords and walk you through the practices, processes, and pitfalls of the lean product methodology. Also, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A tab down below, and at the end, we will have a Q&A session. Now, as discussion topics, we will go through the lean startup, the common mistakes, and how to avoid them, the product market fit. What is actually product market fit? The build, measure, and learn cycle, which is widely misunderstood. The MVP, minimum viable product, what is an MVP and what's not an MVP. The product life cycle, business modeling, lean analytics, and kill, pivot, or preserve. The meaning and when and how to apply them. Now, first, I would like to begin with the lean startup. Steve Blank, which is recognized for developing the customer development method that launched the lean startup movement, defines a startup as an organization formed to search for a repeatable and scalable business model. Now, let's explain this definition a bit. So an organization can be anything from a small company, an innovation team, or a product team within a corporation. A repeatable business model. Why? Because you want to sell to a lot of people, not just the initial bunch of early adopters. A scalable business model, because you want to be able to create a successful business out of it. So if your operational costs are too high or the technology you are relying is too expensive, you will not succeed. But most important of all, it is the concept of the business model we care about. Now, the lean methodology provides a scientific approach to creating and managing startups and get a desired product to customers' hands faster. Now, the lean startup method teaches you how to drive a startup and grow a business with maximum acceleration. It is a principled approach to new product development, like Eric Rice, which is the author of the Lean Startup, says. Now, let's discuss a bit about the common mistakes that cause huge delays in time to market, frustration, and a terrible waste of money, and also human potential. Now, Lean Startup is the key to avoiding these mistakes, to deliver awesome customer experiences as fast as possible with minimum hassle by engaging everyone in the organization. Let's start with the first one, putting the cart before the horse. Now, this is the most usual mistake traditional companies make. Scaling before having objective evidence that you have built something people want and there exists a reasonable market for your product, which is the product market fit. Now, usually there is a goal, a project or an idea. Then companies create a business model out of the blue. They fund the whole thing based on estimates and guesses on the future. They put the whole infrastructure, resources, and people together up front, and then they start building like crazy. So you don't need 15 developers if you have a validated product market fit. You will find something better to do for them. You also don't need the budget for the year assigned to projects and products from day one. And you also do not need a scalable architecture from day one either. So your infrastructure needs to grow alongside your customer base. Otherwise, you will be burning cash like crazy. Now, some entrepreneurs also make the same mistake of jumping into scale phase before achieving product market fit. And this is a huge mistake because scaling sucks cash like crazy. And if you don't have product market fit, you are basically doomed. Now, the second one is build, build, build. This is the well-known pattern of waterfall and still today of so many called agile companies. Now, they basically start building without understanding what problems they are trying to solve beforehand, for whom, and if there is a market big enough out there willing to pay for it. Now, here, the problem is not so much scaling before product market fit, but a mindset of delivery, a mindset of output over outcome. So the measure of success and productivity is delivering working software to production, regardless if that is solving a problem or providing any business benefit at all. It's like a feature factory. In this scenario, you don't know if there is a problem we're solving and if your solution fixes that problem, but you are already building software. Now, bear in mind, building software is the most expensive thing you will do. So try to reduce it as much as possible. Now, the third one, measuring the wrong thing. So, and here we talk about those metrics that make you feel good, but unfortunately are useless. Those are the vanity metrics. We will discuss on detail later on. So you need to know at every point in time what are the key metrics you are measuring and how your experiments will impact those metrics. There is also a key mistake most traditional companies make, which is measuring innovation success with the same parameters they measure normal business operations. And the next common mistake is building doesn't always mean software. A build doesn't mean a fully fledged product. Building should mean the minimum thing you can build that will validate a hypothesis and the risk your business model. It can be a live product, but it also means landing pages, mockups, user interviews, or a physical product or service simulating an online experience, for example. Innovator bias is another one. Now, you have a great idea and you immediately think of a solution and start building it without first validating if it solves any problem at all. Now, this is the typical situation when you have a solution looking for a problem to solve. It is typical of new technologies that are really cool, but cannot become a viable business model. Now, and the last one is sunk cost fallacy. This is mostly typical of traditional companies with project mentality and annual budgets. This is a cognitive bias that occurs when you continue with the project because you have already invested a lot of money, time, or effort in it, even when continuing is not the best thing to do. This is an irrational behavior that usually causes more economic losses than stopping right away. You can see this irrational behavior everywhere all the time. And the solution to this problem is lean startup and data. Now let's discuss about the most important milestone in the life of a product, which is the product market fit. And what is product market fit? Now, product market fit is being in the right market with the right product, and of course, satisfy the market. It is a key milestone in the life cycle of any product or feature. It's basically the intersection between value generated and value captured. It is the point where feasible, viable, and valuable intersect for the first time. So you have mostly developed valuable Your product meets real customer needs and does so in a way that is better than the alternatives. But you're starting to validate, and this is viability. Is it profitable? And feasibility. Can it be built at scale? Now, at the beginning, we mostly tackled desirability, meaning is it usable and valuable for customers? As we move towards product market fit, we work on reducing the risk of viability. And when we scale, we mostly deal with feasibility risk. Now, as you can imagine, these are not independent and sequential phases, but it is important that you keep in mind these three fundamental risks. For technology companies, viability and feasibility intersect, as you can see from the beginning, and you shouldn't wait too much to evaluate technical risks. Now let's get into the build, measure, and learn cycle. So like many other concepts from Lean Startup, it has been widely misunderstood. But it is important that you understand this. Build does not necessarily mean software or physical product. Now let's take the first one, the build. In this phase, we basically use one thing, which is the MVP, the minimum viable product. Now, we will create MVPs with different levels of fidelity depending on what we are testing. We will test initial versions of the MVP by creating MVP prototypes, such as wireframes, mockups, interactive prototypes, or even a live product by interviewing clients or observing how they use them. Now let's measure. The key measure here is traction. However, what traction means will depend on your type of business. Some product services are designed to capture value only once. For example, cars, wedding planners, or real estate. And other products are designed to capture value repeatedly through repeated use. For example, SaaS, social networks, online marketplaces, or online businesses. Now, in the first case, tractions, it's mainly due to the experience on the service, which can be measured effectively using the activation metric. The second one is also based on a good first experience, but success comes as a result of repeated use, which makes engagement the most indicative measure that we are building something that people want. And finally, we have to learn. Now, at this stage, we are validating the business model in direct and frequent contacts with the market. We use the MVP as a platform on which we are conducting experiments to validate riskiest hypotheses. As we reduce the risk of the business model, we must pay attention to certain metrics that will indicate if you are approaching the coveted product market fit. Now, when you define your product strategy, you are defining an hypothesis about what market to serve and how to best use your capabilities to beat competition. Now, let's take a look at the meaning of those four concepts in this image. So, hypothesis is the assumption regarding a problem that your customer have, an unattended need of your customer, or a risk of your business model or strategy that serves as the basis of initiating an investigation. The design, what we are going to do to validate the hypothesis and how we are going to measure it. The test, it's the execution of the experiment. And the insight, what did you learn and what was the impact on the metrics? Now, we have to know that insights can be qualitative, why, or quantitative, what, how much, when, or when. Now, for some teams, this life cycle will last a few days. Others will take a whole week or even two. It really depends on the stage of the product life cycle you are currently in. As an example that came to my mind right now, a design sprint shoves the whole cycle in 4 or 5 days to work on a single challenge. So you can use a design sprint to create the delivery backlog for the next few agile iterations in order to solve a problem. Tackle a specific goal or design your MVP, your minimum viable product. Now, the build, measure, learn cycle goes on forever. It is basically the engine of the lean startup. Let's discuss about probably the term that most confusion and arguments has ever created. And this is the MVP, the minimum viable product. Now, what are the conditions of a good MVP? It must address all the key benefits that we identify in the value propositions. It must provide value to the customer. It must bring monetization value back. It must be functional, reliable, usable, and delightful. Now, we also need to know what is not an MVP, which is a phase one of a project, a product with limited functionality, a landing page or an email campaign, a wireframe or a mockup. As we can see in the pyramid on the left, it illustrates the misconception that an MVP is just a product with limited functionality. Instead, the pyramid on the right shows that while an MVP has limited functionality, it should be complete by addressing also reliability, usability, and delight. So we don't consider a valid MVP any marketing tests like marketing materials, landing pages, smoke test, explainer video, ad campaigns. Those are powerful techniques for validating problem solution fit, but you won't raise a Series A investment because many people watch your funny video. Now, we consider valid MVPs all those which demonstrate traction. Crowdfunding campaigns, Wizard of Oz and Concierge, live products, Fake Door 404 page, and product analytics, and A/B testing. Now, you can still use wireframes, mockups, or interactive prototypes to either test an MVP, other part of the business model, or additional features. But this won't let you validate traction. So we cannot consider them valid MVPs. As an example, let's talk about the MVP Tesla founder Elon Musk used to validate the riskiest assumption of his business model. Now, the assumption that customers of luxury cars would be willing to buy an electric car. And this is interesting. Instead of tackling it all at once, he first launched a high-performance electric sports car, which was the Tesla Roadster. Now, the biggest problem to solve for an electric car was to match the range of a regular car on a full tank of gas. And to solve this problem, Tesla didn't build a car from scratch. Instead, it licensed the rights to use the body of the Lotus Esprit car. And Tesla essentially took out the internals from the Lotus, fitted it with his own battery and motor, and sold it at a pretty high price tag. By starting at premium high end, Tesla was able to limit its scale of production and really focus only on getting the right product, on getting the product right, and which was testing the product market fit. Now, as we covered the MVP, let's get into the product lifecycle. Now, here you have 3 stages in the life cycle of any idea. It's the problem solution fit, the product market fit, and the scale. On the right side, we are using Ash Maurya, which is the creator of Lean Canvas framework, as a backbone. Now, the first stage is about determining whether you have a problem worth solving before investing into building a solution. A problem worth solving boils down to 3 questions. Is it something customers want? Meaning, is it desirable? Is it valuable? Will they pay for it? Is it viable? Or can it be solved? Is it feasible? Now, during this stage, we attempt to answer this question using a combination of qualitative customer observation and interviewing techniques. Now, we define our value proposition and derive a minimum feature set to address the right set of problems, which we also known as the MVP. And once you have a problem we're solving and your MVP has been built, You test how well your solution solves the problem. Now, in other words, you measure whether you have built something people want. And during this stage, you use both qualitative and quantitative metrics for measuring product market fit. Achieving traction or product market fit is the first significant milestone for any startup or product. Now, at this stage, you have a plan that is starting to work. You are signing up customers, you are retaining them, and getting paid. Now, here is where you are mainly testing viability of your business model. After product market fit, you shift towards growth or scaling your business model. Now, here is where you start tracking traditional metrics like revenue, profit, cost of sales, operational costs, etc. There is a before and after achieving product market fit. Now, before product market fit, everything is about learning and pivoting. You are finding a plan that works and using innovation accounting to measure progress. Now, after product market fit, you focused on growth, optimizations, and continuous improvement. Now, here is where you start sucking cash like crazy and implementing growth hacking and agile at scale. Well, let's analyze these three phases one by one. So first is the problem solution fit. At this stage, you basically want to answer two questions. Is there a problem we're solving? Do I have a solution for that problem? And this phase uses the build, measure, learn cycle to discover who is your target customer and what are their problems or their needs. Now, problem solution fit is the equivalent to customer discovery in Steve Blank's customer development model and the equivalent to Alex Osterwalder's value proposition design phase. Now, mentioning the build, measure, learn cycle, let's take the build case, the first one. So talk to people, go to conferences, go where your customers are and walk with them. You can also complement that with problem interviews, solution interviews, surveys, landing pages, marketing materials. Then measure. Now, most measures are qualitative, although you can still do some experiments and validate with data, like CTRs for a given landing page, for example. And the next phase is learn. Now, the goal of this phase is to find the real target customer and their true needs and problems. Now, you will need to do several iterations, going deeper, asking why 5 times, many times. So if you stay in the surface, you will target the wrong customer segment, or you will address the wrong customer needs, or even both. So you want to understand the underlying need of the customer, the real root cause. But before achieving product market fit, you will change course several times. So that means you are learning. That's what we call pivoting. We also need methodologies like design thinking, ethnographic research, and tools like value proposition canvas, lean UX canvas. And there's also warning. So as a warning, learn to differentiate between wants and needs. So you are looking for underlying needs, especially unknown needs or those needs currently undeserved by the market. So when using user personas, try to focus the study in the needs, not in the demography and psychology. So the most important is to cluster markets by needs. Surveys are more effective at verification than learning. So a word of caution here, use surveys to verify learnings rather than to learn something. Now is the product market fit as the second phase. This is how I like it to call the holy grail of any startup founder, product manager, or innovation team. Now, in Steve Blank's customer development model, this phase corresponds to customer validation phase because it is when you start creating customers. In Ash Maurya's model earlier, this is where you start getting traction and capturing back monetizable value from the market. At this stage, you basically want to answer one question, which actually divides into two sub-questions. Is there a viable market for the product? Is the market big enough to support our business? Can we get traction in the market? Are customers willing to pay? Does our value proposition serve their needs better than competitors? So the build case here is that we are going to basically use one thing, which is the MVP, the minimum viable product discussed earlier. Now, the outcome of the previous stage is a value proposition that you will validate with customers by creating and iterating an MVP. Now, you will use MVP with different levels of fidelity depending on what you are testing. So we want to prioritize testing products. So the typical MVPs we will use are Wizard of Oz and Concierge, Live Product, Fake Door, and A/B testing. Now, you will test initial versions of the MVP by creating MVP prototypes, such as wireframes, mockups, interactive prototypes, or even live product. And you will test them by interviewing customers or observing them using it. Now, at this stage, we recommend you start populating your lean canvas or business model canvas if you haven't done it before. And now the key measure here is the traction. Sean Ellis, for example, which is the CEO of Growth Hackers, developed a survey question to assess your level of product market fit. And in the survey, Sean Ellis was asking the users of his product the question, how would you feel if you could not longer use the product? And the four possible responses are very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed, and NA. And it's interesting that Ellis found that that products for which 40% or more of users replied very disappointed tend to have product market fit. Now, there can be some variability in that threshold based on the product category, but it is a good general rule of thumb. We also use tools like Lean Canvas, Business Model Canvas, Innovation Accounting, and user testing. And finally, the last stage, scale. Now, this stage corresponds to the last two stages of Steve Blank's customer development model, customer creation, and company building. Just a few recommendations I have here. Before scaling, you must be able to demonstrate product market fit. We all know that scaling sucks cash like crazy, so make sure you pay attention to your finances, especially your CCC, the cash conversion cycle. Now, your business model is never finished. Unpleasant things can happen. For example, a new competitor might enter your market, or a new technology might transform the lighters into table stakes. Now, keep driving incremental innovation and scanning the market and tendencies. Try to disrupt yourself by creating an innovation team that works on a radical change in one of the parts of the business model canvas. For instance, check what would happen if a competitor would offer my product or service for free. Now, as we discussed earlier about mistakes, product market fit, in product lifecycle MVPs, BML phases, let's discuss about how an organization creates, delivers, and captures. And this is a business modeling. A secure recipe for failure is to use the traditional approach of creating a business model out of the blue, full of wishes, expectations, and assumptions, and take it for granted. So then hand it over to a team for delivery. Now, this is the traditional approach and the one which doesn't work. Now, using a lean startup approach, the business model is the underlying thread. Remember, we are searching for a repeatable and scalable business model. Now, some teams start by creating an initial versions of the business model by using frameworks such as business model canvas or lean canvas. Some teams don't. So you can use business model canvas or lean canvas as a dashboard that captures the riskiest parts of your endeavor and keep it updated as you evolve. It is also great practice to work in a few versions of the canvas in a parallel to avoid falling into a local maximum. Now, at the beginning, don't waste too much time through discussing about stuff like channels, partnerships, or revenue streams when you don't even know if there exists a problem we're solving. Now, a very good practice is to start your problem solution fit quest by working with value proposition design using value proposition canvas from Alex Osterwalder, for example. Let's move forward now to lean analytics. Now, most probably, you are already have a lot of experience in tracking your business bottom line, with traditional metrics like revenue, profit, or cost of sales. Now, here we want to talk about measuring. I'm sorry for this. Even my dog is excited. Just a second, please. Okay, I think we can start again. I'm sorry for this inconvenience. So we were talking about the lean analytics. Like I said at the beginning, you already have a lot of experience in tracking your business bottom line with traditional metrics like revenue, profit, or cost of sales. Now, here we want to talk about measuring product market fit as the key milestone in the development of a new product or feature. So, innovation accounting is the alternative to traditional accounting when you are in exploration mode. So, if you don't have a business model yet, all your traditional metrics will be zero or close to zero. Now, sadly, this is one of the main obstacles to corporate innovation, using traditional metrics like revenue to measure or ROI to measure the progress of innovation. Now, this is why Eric Rines coined this concept to keep management and finance people at bay and to emphasize the difference in measuring progress between exploration and execution. Now, rather than financials, innovation accounting is based on user behavior. Now, let's get back to a more detailed explanation of vanity metrics, like I have mentioned to you earlier. So, vanity metrics are those metrics that are only good for your ego. Numbers that sound impressive, but don't reveal much about your underlying business. Now, typical vanity metrics are the following: number of hits, number of page views, number of visits, number of followers, friends, likes, time on website, number of page visited, emails collected, or number of downloads. So if you have data on which you cannot act, it's a vanity metric. So you want your data to inform guides to improve your business model, to help you decide on your course of action, to help you pivot. Now, whenever you look at the metric, just ask yourself, what will I do differently based on this information? So if you can not answer that question, you probably shouldn't worry too much about this metric. Now, what makes a good metric? So a good metric is comparative. You must be able to compare it with previous periods of time, customer segments, or competitors. A good metric is understandable. So people must be able to remember it and talk about it. So a good metric is a ratio, for example, or a rate. And a good metric changes the way you behave. Now, this is by far the most important criteria for a good metric. What will you do differently based on a change in this metric? And both Qualitative and quantitative learnings are important and complement each other. So quantitative research tells you what, how much, and when, but not why. And that's the reason we usually start with qualitative research to understand the relevant problems and needs. Armed, armed with this information, you then proceed to quantitative research to find out how many people are doing something. Now, throughout your process of finding a business model that is sustainable, repeatable, and growing, you will be repeating the process over and over again. And this is the lean analytics cycle. Now, find a meaningful metric. Run experiments to improve until that metric is good enough. Move to the next problem or stage of your business. Now, how we can find the right metric? So, in order to find the right metric, you need to understand what business are you in, understand what stage in the product life cycle you are currently in, and understand what problem you are trying to solve using an analytics model. So, for instance, if you're running an e-commerce if you're running an e-commerce in product market fit phase, we know that retention is the key metric, but it is a lagging indicator. So you need to figure it out what components of your product are leading to your current level of retention. Also, what business are you in? So to decide which metrics you should track, you need to be able to describe your business model in a simple and a practical way. So you need to take a helicopter view and just think about the really big components. Also, here is where lean canvas or business model canvas are really important. Now, a business model is a combination of things. It's what you sell, how you deliver it, how you acquire customers, and how you make money from them. And what problems are you trying to solve? Let's say, for example, you are developing some sort of social network. So your first time shows some promising results, but user base, and you are already generating some advertising revenue, but too low to Joe, you need to do something about it. So you think that growing your user base as fast as possible is the best way. So you set a goal to improve your viral growth. Then you need to analyze what parts of the process and detect areas for improvement. So perhaps you can do something to increase user engagement, or you can have more user inviting friends, or you can increase the number of invites sent per user, or improve the number of recipients who sign in. So after analyzing the baseline for each metrics and drawing a line in the sand for each one, you decide the average invites sent per user is the metric that will have the most impact. So you develop an action plan to improve that metric during the next few iterations of your MVP. Also use an analytics model. So an analytics model is a simple and repeatable process for using analytics to drive improvements, business decisions, and pivots. And one of the keys to success of startups or new products is focus. Now, thus, at any given time, there's one metric you should care about above anything else. So they call this the OMTM, the one metric that matters, mentioned earlier. Now, this means picking a single metric that's incredibly important for the step you are currently working through in your endeavor. So the OMTM is the one metric you are currently focused on above anything else. So you still monitor other metrics, but this one sets your direction and marks your decisions. The OMTM changes over time. So when you are focused on acquiring users and converting them into customers, your OMTM may be tied to which acquisition channels are working best or the conversion rate from signing up to active user. So when you're focused on retention, you may be looking at churn and experimenting with pricing, features, improving customer support, and so on. So when you finally reached product market fit, what is the OMTM for product market fit? Now, when you're working on a new product, it doesn't make sense to spend lots of money trying to acquire or convert customers until you know your customers, find your product valuable. So if customers find value in your product, they will continue to use it. Otherwise, they won't. So retention is the key macro metric most closely related to product market fit. Hence, it is typically the first OMTM for a new product. And once you confirm strong product market fit with a healthy retention rate, you can move to conversion and afterwards acquisition. Now, in the end, let's discuss a bit about how to know when to give up, when to pivot, and when to conserve. And this is the kill, pivot, or preserve topic. Now, in summary, the project will be canceled? Will it be used? How quickly will it be used? Now, this applies for any project or product. And it is your responsibility as a product manager to ask yourself this question after every iteration, but mostly when trying to go to the next phase. And let's take the first one, the kill. Shall we stop investing in this idea, product, or project? Preserve. Shall we go on? And pivot. Shall we correct the course? Now, in order to answer these questions, you need data. You must kill any idea when you cannot achieve problem solution fit, product market fit, or despite several attempts, you cannot seem to scale sales. Now, pivot is a structured course correction in order to test a new fundamental hypothesis about the product, the business model, or the engine of growth. Now, we are not talking about changes in the interface or some functionality. Now, most successful companies went through one or more pivots. You can read about Instagram, YouTube, Amazon, Hotmail, Twitter, and so many others. Now, here are some types of pivots. So as you can see from the types of pivots, there are some that can happen during problem solution fit stage and others during the product market fit stage. But pivots during the scaling stage are kind of rare and dramatic also. Now, the cost of pivoting is greater as we move forward in the life cycle of the product. Therefore, we have to establish the mechanism to detect these changes, of course, as soon as possible and with the lowest possible cost. It is not the same to detect the need to change the customer segment or the needs of users in the discovery stage than to detect a need to change distribution or customer acquisition channel due to change in the price of our product or revenue model. So like Douglas Hauber said, even in projects with very uncertain cost, we haven't found that those costs have significant information value for the investment decision. So the single most important unknown is whether the project will be canceled. The next most important variable is the utilization of the system, including how quickly the system rolls out and whether some people will use it at all. This will be all for today. Thank you again for joining this session. Also, I have to mention that today's presentation is recorded and also the PDF will be available for all the participants. Now let's move to the Q&A stage. Just a second, please. Okay, so we have a question from a anonymous attendee. Is how you implement lean when you are a corporation with a very complex supply chain? And this is a great question. Um, there is a trap to lean implementation, and that is oversimplifying anything. So many companies and manufacturers in particular have exaggerated the inventory leanness, and that leads to a focus on inventory rather than a focus on eliminating waste. So value stream mapping and supplier involvement are part of supply chain management. So value stream mapping is actually the component that needs to be used before the other lean elements can be implemented. And by mapping the value stream of a product or a service, it gets clear where there is waste that can be eliminated. A VCM is one of the most used lean techniques. Now, this is probably because this tool is very helpful in finding the waste that is central to the lean philosophy. For lean and especially just in time to work, it is essential that suppliers are involved in the process of lean. Waste can be along the whole value stream from raw material to end product. So when your own company is lean but your suppliers are not, there will still be waste in the supply chain of their product. Now, therefore, it is optimal to create lean processes over the whole product supply chain. The second step is lean implementation. Identify the value stream is applicable in supply chain management. The fourth step of pull is made possible by involving suppliers in the lean methodology. With this lean concept, the sixth waste of inventory is minimized. I hope this answers your question. And if you're interested to deep dive into a specific scenario, just feel free to email us and we'll set up a call. Okay, so we have a second question. Tool implementation is standard, but how do you change the mindset of an organization? Okay, so as with everything in life, uh, taking the right steps in the right order is crucial. So when there is a tendency to skip essential steps in the process, problems will arise sooner or later. Now, the first thing to do is to redesign and simplify processes before trying to reduce um, resources, because otherwise implementations often result in a failure. Now, basically, before results can be improved, the process must be improved. And the ideology states lean first, then automate, and we plead for process improvement before starting to automate processes. I also hope this answered your question. We have a third question. The third question: how long does it take for a company to become lean? Also from anonymous attendee. Okay, so in my opinion, to make a change of real and lasting lean success, the company philosophy often needs to change. So company executives need to realize that there are no quick fixes to getting lean. So the idea of the existence of a lean template that is ready to use for implementation is incorrect. No two companies are exactly the same. So we have to know that. Therefore, do not try to find universal implementation manual, and do not try to precisely copy the methods of other companies that already successfully implemented lean. Now, firms that want to become lean need to be aware of the fact that a lean transformation is not one-time effort, but a never-ending pursuit. Because not at all the lean results are financial. There is a need for looking at both financial and non-financial results. Like with almost all habitual changes, results will almost never be visual immediately. So therefore, management needs to get rid of the make demand mentality, and they have to be patient for the real lasting results to appear. It takes at least 5 years for a company to become truly lean, and the first 2 years are classified as disharmony, sorry, and anti-change, and the third year as a stabilized change and building the long-term foundation. Now, beyond year number 3, the results start to add up and change becomes the norm, and the workforce starts to have pride in lean accomplishments. I also, this explanation answered your question. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, so thank you again for joining, everyone. If there are questions, you can always reach me directly to LinkedIn or by email, catalin.salajan@accesa.eu. This would be all from my side. Thank you and have a wonderful day.